thanks for coming back on. I appreciate you taking the time out. So we've spoken a few times for like the Filthy 150. There are 12 wads of Filthy, or I can't remember what the name of it was. Anyway,
Yeah.
you and Brandon Swan and Jessica Coughlin, and it was supposed to be Cam
Oh,
Porter, but he dropped
yes.
out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kelly Baker, yeah. So we've spoken a few times for that on Instagram and stuff. But you haven't been on since 180 episodes ago,
I was gonna say
184 episodes ago.
it was pretty early on, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 10. It was the 10th episode because I remember I was like, "Oh, I can call it 10 Paulson." That's all that came into my head when you said you do it. I was like, "I'll save that for episode 10 because I've already got a pun lined up." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Tim Paulson is hard. It's a hard one to make a pun of." So 10 Paulson. I don't know. I won't be able to keep this till 210 because that'd be a bit of a piss take. But
Yeah, man, that's crazy. And
um,
it's only like, damn, you were on what, like 192, 193?
um, yeah, 193 is this Wednesday.
That's pretty impressive considering. I mean, we talked. It was right before. It had to have been what, like
It was
November, December 2020, something like that.
um,
Because it was right after. It was right after Filthy, wasn't it? That year
yeah, I think it was like
or 2019?
January, December or January. Yeah.
Yeah, early 2020, before COVID
Yeah.
ruined everything. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, COVID wasn't. We were like, yeah, what's all that shit in China?
yeah.
Um, yeah, no, it's been weird. So I took a risk. So we'll see how this pays off. But I was like, I'm not going to make any notes. I'm not going to write anything down. I'm just going to see what happens.
All right.
So in 190 whatever three, I think I kind of half did this once. So I was like, fuck it. I like Tim. I get on well with Tim. I know we'll be able to like keep a conversation going, so it'll be fine. So
Let's rock.
we'll see what happens. I'm probably still running a fever, so who knows what's going to come out.
So it might get kind of weird at some point, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think I called you a prick the other day by accident. Because
Might have deserved
I
it.
was I was talking to someone. I was talking to Lucy Campbell, who was at Wadapalooza actually. She won the row swim run
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
event for the women. And she was saying how um, her coach drinks espresso, and she was like, I can't just drink espresso. And I said, yeah, I kind of think people who just drink espresso are just a bit of a prick. And then afterwards I realized, I was like, I had just interviewed Fraser, and I was like, just call Fraser a prick, just call Tim Bolton a prick, just call Josh Bridges a prick. I just
Oh
realized
yeah.
all the people I called a prick. um so any good coffees lately?
So it's actually funny. I was making my coffee this morning, and I was like, man, I've grown since COVID. Like right before COVID, I bought like a nice espresso setup for my house because basically COVID happened, and I was like, all right, coffee shops are closed. Like I need to be able to make good coffee. So I got very, very snobby about coffee over like throughout COVID, and I will basically only drink espresso based coffees now. Like whether it's straight espresso or like Americanos, like I don't think milk adds any flavor to coffee if I'm being honest. So like I don't drink milk in my coffees.
Oh, that's interesting.
I will only drink black espresso or black Americanos, and that's like unless I'm forced by some circumstance to not have access to that, that is basically all that I will drink.
Wow, so even flat whites are out, cortados are out, even like
Yeah,
the steamed milk.
I mean I've had them, and like don't get me wrong, like I'll have a latte like on a cold winter day, like a good latte can go a long way for me, but like I just it's more like kind of I guess like the moment, like if we're like up in the mountains, we'll like go to a coffee shop and I'll get a latte with like some spice that makes me feel fancy and nice, like something like that. Like that's
You'll get a basic white girl coffee, is
exactly,
what
yeah,
you're saying.
100%. Toss a shot of whatever's on tap in there and let me have it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, as far as like good coffees lately, I mean, sadly, the world hasn't really given them too many good opportunities for like good coffee. I guess like the biggest addition to my coffee arsenal, like I have a full blown travel coffee setup now. So I bought like
Is that your little
yeah, so it's like a hand pump
hand pump?
espresso
Yeah.
machine. I've got a hand grinder for when I travel. I've got a collapsible water boiler. So I guess like the best like like and the quality on the thing is absolutely fantastic. So like I mean, it's as good as my really expensive machine that I have at my house, which kind of blows my mind if I'm being honest. But obviously, there's a lot more to the process because it's not just like, oh, turn the grinder on and then tamp it, good to
Yeah.
go. Like there's a whole it takes you 15 minutes to make a shot on the road, but yeah. I don't know how I would live without it now. I'm far too bougie to go back, and my wife will is not afraid to let me hear it every single time we travel. She's like,
I was gonna say, I'm imagining like going on a trip away and her being like, "Oh, where did I leave Wes's?" Like going around picking up stuff, and you're like collapsing down your what? She's like, "For fuck's sake, Tim."
Jesus. No, yeah, like we anytime we'd like travel to see family, like like I bring it home. So like, her parents or my parents are making coffee in the morning and I'm like, no, just leave me alone. I'm gonna be in the corner by myself
Do
for
you
30
does
minutes.
your your collapsible boiler? Can you like flick it open? Like, because I'd love to see your
Sadly.
father-in-law like getting something ready, and you're like,
Sadly you can't because of the way that it comes together, you gotta pull it apart. It's
yeah,
not like an Iron Man trick. That'd be pretty cool.
yeah,
But yeah, no,
yeah. Someday.
yeah, no, as far as good
Um,
coffees, I mean, that's like, yeah, man, like honestly, the only time I've really traveled, we went to the mountains a couple times, but like during COVID, we were pretty restrictive about it. Like we would just rent a house out in the middle of nowhere and hang out in the mountains by ourselves. I mean, the first time I
yeah.
really traveled in the last 2+ years is to go to Wadapalooza, Miami, and that was to compete. So again, it's like pretty much in my routine. I don't even think I went to a coffee shop when I was down there, honestly.
When you like, is it? Because I know like when we went to the games, I followed you on Instagram and used you as like a okay, he was here yesterday, I'll go there
Yeah.
today or whatever for coffee places. But is the games an anomaly? Like, are you? Well, I suppose maybe it's different now at Wes and stuff as well. But like, do you allow yourself time around competitions to be like, okay, I'm going to go and get acclimatized and like get to know the area and whatever, or are you like, no, fuck it, I feel too guilty leaving early, so I'm going to go. I'm starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow. I'll leave at 8 o'clock today.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, that part's admittedly really hard now. So far, I still go early, partially just because, like, I mean, my wife's super understanding about like, when I'm going to compete, we're like, we're going to do a job. We're not going there to, like, I'm not going to roll in unprepared in any way, shape, or form. And for me, that means being there at least with enough time to have a day in the city, a good night's sleep, and then ideally a rest day after I get there because I don't like competing the day right after I travel. It just feels like travel just messes me up too much. Like being on airplanes, being dehydrated, having to sit a bunch, like just it's just I just think it's a disaster. So like for Wadapalooza this year, for instance, we started Thursday. I flew down first thing Tuesday. So I flew out like I dropped Wes at daycare Tuesday morning, and then I flew down Tuesday afternoon, got there by like, I don't know, 7 or 8 o'clock. So I had a night the whole next day and then another night to kind of acclimate. It's obviously it's a complete, I mean, clusterfuck if we're being honest, because like the way our daycare works, my wife works at 9 to 5. She works at a hospital as a physical therapist, and our daycare we go to a small in-home program that a few of our friends run. So like the quality of the care is like, I mean, better than we could ever ask for, but the hours are a little bit shorter. So the daycare is 8 to 3:30, and my wife works like basically 7:30 to like 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So I do pickups and drop-offs almost every day of the week. So it's just like when I'm gone it changes everything. So her work schedule has to fluctuate completely, or we need to have family in town. Like it's a very extensive planning process now when I go to compete, assuming she's not coming with me. And you know,
Yeah,
I've only competed without them once since we had Wes, which was for Wadapalooza. Obviously, COVID kind of hasn't given us a ton of opportunities. But like they came to Granite Games last year, so they came to my semifinal. It's just kind of also tough because in order for me to have my time, Kate, like my wife Kate, has to take off basically the entire week from work, and then she's alone with Wes essentially because I'm there, kind of largely focusing on competing stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, it's very different now. But I mean, 100%, I would rather have them there with me. Like Wadapalooza was not. It was a good experience, but being there without them was I really didn't enjoy it. It's just my parents were there, which is really nice. So like I had some family there; they were there to support me, which is really cool. But just being there without Wes, like it's just I don't know, it's weird, man. Like just being in an apartment by yourself, like. I know some people who are parents might like really kind of be like, "Oh, this is a nice break," and like that lasted for me for like maybe an hour and a half. And then I was like, "All right, well, now what do I do?" It's quiet.
yeah.
It's weird.
I'd say about a month ago. I can't remember why. I think just like Orla's on maternity leave with Bodhi, but her and Sloan and Bodhi went to her parents' house for a night, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be amazing!" Like, I'll just like this is gonna be so good. And then by like whatever 7:30, Sloan goes to bed. So they were gone from like 4 o'clock, and then by the time I like realized what time it was, I was like, "Oh, I've missed bedtime."
Yeah,
And I was like, I'm slowly be gone to bed now anyway. So and Bodhi's like an inanimate object at this stage. So I was like, like I'm actually not gaining anything from this.
yeah.
Like it'd be better if they went in the middle of the day. Like why didn't that like now I'm just lonely. This
Yeah.
just doesn't work out at all.
I already did
Yeah,
all the
no.
parenting
So
for the day. Now I'm just sitting here by myself.
I did the hard shit. I put her down for a nap. I was like, I dragged her up the stairs.
Uh,
Yeah. Has Wes like I know like say your perspective around like say life and stuff changes obviously, but like has he him has his arrival changed like the competitive landscape for you, or like how you um maybe not how you prepare for competitions and stuff, but even like mentally around competitions, like do you find that you care more about your performance? Do you care less about your performance? Has it changed it at all, or is it like it's just kind of an irrelevant factor?
uh, it's changed a lot of things for sure. I mean, I think I care about the externals less. Like the pressure that I used to put on myself to, like just like the amount of stress that used to go into like worrying about like exact performances, placement, stuff like that. Like the externally related ones, I feel like have lessened a lot. Because like the, I mean, I guess like at the end of the day, like I just want to like I want to compete in a way that makes me proud, and kind of by association would make him proud. Like when I look back on these moments and I tell him about what I did, like when he's older and I can explain to him like what it meant to compete at a high level, like I want to be able to tell him honest stories that I'm really proud of, and like I think obviously I'm not thinking about that in the moment, but like I guess things have gotten a lot more internal. Like I'm just much more focused on myself, and I think obviously that's also I I haven't put it fully to the test yet, but I think that's going to help me in the long run, like from a competitive standpoint, because again, CrossFit is an individual sport, and your performance is the only one that matters. So the more that I'm focused internally and on the things that I'm doing, that I'm controlling, things like that, like I do think it's going to positively impact my performance kind of as we go throughout the season. And this season will be the big test because kind of like you just alluded to, like, last season, Wes was kind of an inanimate object. Like he just started crawling and walking and stuff right around the games last year. So largely he was just kind of like this ball of mush that we loved until the games. Whereas now it's like, he's much more of like, he's a full toddler, like there's all those reasoning with him and he gets mad at you and he wants to hit you, like just like all the things that go into like, actually now you're raising a kid, like you're not just keeping it alive, like you're actually turning it into a person now. So like, I think, I guess to kind of go back to the beginning, like, does it change things at all? Yeah, it makes me love what I do more, I think would be like the kind of the overarching perspective, because I feel like I just value my time a lot more now. Like I value the importance of being present and the importance of the things that I choose to prioritize. And because I spend so much time training and like I understand, or I guess I appreciate more now the value of time, because I feel like once we had Wes, like you fully understand and realize that like time is the best thing that you can, I think time is the best thing you can give your kid. Like time where you're present with them, time where you're hanging out with them, you're interacting with them. Like that's what, that's the way that I think I can, we can best have an impact on them, is just to be there. So it's like, if I'm going to put all this time and effort into training, and granted, I always train when Wes is at daycare, so it's like, for the most part, it won't detract directly from my time with him. But again, it's just like time just is so precious. So it's like, my hours in the gym, I guess, I have more appreciation for them now. And I think that again, that just kind of will, in the long run, it's gonna make me a better athlete for sure.
Do you ever feel guilty about how much time you train or going to competitions or that kind of stuff?
Yeah, a little bit now. Like, and especially like Wadapalooza was hard. Like that was the first time again. Like, Wes and Caitlin came to semifinals last year. They came to the games last year. So Wadapalooza was the first time they weren't there, and it's like I did not hand. I'm a pretty sappy, like, emotional guy, especially with my family. Like, I'm, just not afraid to admit I'm kind of a teddy bear, and it's just like FaceTiming with Wes, like, especially when he was at a point where, like, he fully understood that, like, Dada's not here. Like, that was not. I did not do well. Like, that was a really tough thing for me to kind of, like, swallow and grasp. It's like he was like, it was, just so cute. You pick up the phone, he FaceTimes with you, and like he sees Dada, and he's like Dada, and like smile, he like just gets so excited to see you, and it's like so heartwarming. But you're like, I'm missing it because, again, like, going back to time, it's like, again, like, you just don't get those things back. Like, if I'm gone and he does X, Y, or Z, well, I'm gone. It's just those minutes and those hours that you don't get back. And, like, granted, I'm doing something that, it's my passion, it's my job, so, like, I know that in the bigger picture that I'm happy with the decisions I've made, and I think I'm doing things for the right reasons. It's still just really hard. So yeah, it's hard.
Did you have a whoop before he was born?
Yes, I've had a Whoop for, I think I got it at Wadapalooza in 20, I think it was 29, the one that happened right before COVID ruined everything again. So, like, 2019,
Okay,
2020, early 2020.
2020, yeah.
Yeah.
And was there a mark because we got ours after Sloan was born, and it was like, say for Orla, she was just like, this thing just literally does not know what time of day it is or anything. Because it was like, no matter, even with Bodhi, no matter what she did, it was like 99% recovery. She was like, I slept for an hour and 15 minutes. And I was like,
Bullshit.
yeah, but your body, I was like, your body has obviously adapted. You're obviously just in peak performance mode, and that the Whoop is just detecting
Yeah.
that. But like, obviously for people like you, it's a lot more important to know how you feel, how you're like, recovering, all that kind of stuff. Like, say when he arrived, was there a period of time where you just like ignored it? Or like, because I know last week I saw you and your wife put up like contrasting recoveries for a shit night's
Yeah.
sleep. Like, do you kind of dismiss recovery on days like that and just say like, okay, well, the barn is hopefully fairly full at this stage anyway, and we'll just do the best we can until the next good day?
Yeah, I mean, definitely partially. Like, I use it selectively, I would say. Like, if there's a day where, like, Wes has a really bad night or whatever, it's like, I know it's I know that the signs aren't going to point to me being great today, but it's like, I'm still going to show up and do the work because that's what I'm going to do. And I know that, like, I might use it as, like, a bit of a temper to expectations, like, again, maybe I go in and it's like, all right, I know I got a horrible night's sleep. So, like, I might show up to the gym, warm up, and feel like I can conquer the world, or I might show up, warm up, and feel like dog shit. Like, it could very well go either way, and I'm fully prepared for that. And I think that's been a bit of an adjustment, just like training after having Wes, just like understanding that, I told myself family was always going to come first. Like, I'm not going to prioritize training over what it means to be a good parent, to be a good partner, like all those things. So, like, yeah, if it means that we're up in the middle of the night or whatever, like, that's part of putting family first, So it's like, if it means that my training is affected, that's okay. I made that decision. Like, I may be really pissed about it in the moment where it's like, God, I feel like garbage. Like, I feel like I'm falling behind. Like, there might be that mental battle against other athletes where you kind of have that comparison moment. But again, I made the choices, and they're choices that I made, and they're choices that I'm really happy with. I think for me, the one thing I noticed actually most about the Whoop, again, I've been on it for about 3 years now, maybe, is I've got my life very routinely situated so that I do all the physical things all the time. Like, I'm constantly stretching every day. I do breath work every day. Like I do all of these things that are going to promote recovery without question. It's not a yes or no. It's like, it's happening. The biggest thing that affects it is his mood, because his mood affects my mood. And, like, I've come to realize just how much stress affects your physiological, like, like your physiological signs. Like, if I'm alone with Wes in the afternoon and he is just, like, raging, like, just he's really mad, he's teething, whatever, like, he's just having a really hard day, and I am, like, having to try, like, extra hard to be like, all right, compose, like, just, like, don't be a dick. You, like, he's angry. Like, you have to be a calm, rational figure in this situation. You're the parent, but, like, that takes energy. And, like I think any parent would say that, like, yeah, sometimes it's really hard to just stay calm and be like, wow, this kid's being really hard right now, and, like, I need to stay calm because I'm the adult. But, like, that stuff takes more of a toll on me than any training day. Like I could go and like log a 19 strain, wake up the next day in the green, fine. Wes has a crap afternoon, guaranteed yellow. Like just because again, like the stress of trying to like figure it out. Like, is he okay? Is something wrong? Like, do I need to do something different? Like just like that problem solving and like worrying about him takes a bigger toll
Yeah.
on me than training does most of the time.
Yeah, no, that's fair, I think. I played oh, like we were basically all stuck at home. Um so I was like, right, I need to play something with Sloane because we started watching this cartoon on Netflix called Puff and Rock.
Never heard of it.
And it's like it's an Irish cartoon, but it's like the Puffins on Skellig Michael,
Oh yeah,
like down in Kerry or whatever. But for some reason, they all have Northern Irish accents. But anyway, and Chris O'Dowd narrates it. You know the guy off the IT Crowd, and he's in like Bridesmaids. I think he's a policeman in
yeah.
Bridesmaids. So he narrates it anyway. It's kind of funny. Like like it's harmless. It's like I find it like mildly entertaining. It's not annoying or anything. But she is fucking obsessed with it. Like obsessed, obsessed. There's no like reality has warped to where it's like, hang on, does she actually think that this is real? Like, does she actually think that we are going to meet this puffin outside when we go for our walk? Like, because she'll just be talking about them ad nauseum, just be like, oh, Una, whatever, like going on. So I was like, today, she's like, oh, we watched Puffin Rock. And I was like, no, like, this is, there's only 2 seasons of it. I know every fucking word of every episode. Like, we need to do something else. So I was like, right, I was feeling a bit better today, so I was like, okay, we'll play a game. So she has a little table and chairs, so I set it up like it was an airport because she's obsessed with like we're going on holidays in fucking July, and she's been obsessed with it since we told her we're going on holidays. So I gave her like a piece of paper and I gave her a book, and I was like, that's your passport and that's your ticket. And she was like sitting on the stairs at the bottom of the stairs. I was like, come into me, and I'm gonna be working in the airport. So she comes in with her little fucking bag, and she's like really nervous because she doesn't know what's gonna happen, I think. And I was like, hi, what's your name? She's like, Sloan White. And I was like, okay. I was like, have you got your passport? And she was like stared at me. I was like, the book. And she like handed me the book. I was like, have you got your ticket? And she was like stared at me. I was like, the piece of paper. And she hands me the ticket. And I was like, oh, very good. I was like, where are you going on your holidays? And she goes, Aldi, which is like a
Oh
shop.
yeah.
And I was like,
Grocery
okay,
store.
well, yeah. I was like, you don't really. I mean, maybe we're going to go on an airplane, so maybe like France or something. And she was like, France. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, what are you going to buy in France? And she was like, cheese. And I was like, fuck. Does she understand the cultural relevance of what she just said, or was it just a fluke? And I was just like, I've never talked to her about French cheese before, so I was like, oh, okay, that's good. So then she was like, I moved the chairs so they were like in an airplane thing, like in a row. And I was like, oh, you have to store your baggage under the chair. And like Orla was upstairs putting Bodhi to sleep, and she texted me saying, how long have you been playing this game for? And I at this stage it was like 45 minutes of like check in airplane, back out to the stairs, check in airplane, back out to the
Oh my
stairs. And
god.
every time she did it, she picked up another thing in her bag and like added it to her bag. And Orla came downstairs and was like, what's with all the stuff on the table? Because it was like 45 objects on the table. I was like, every time she's gone on the plane, she's picked up another object. This is like evidence of how long I've been playing this game for. My strain is 14.
Oh my god.
And that's all I did today. I didn't do anything. We didn't even go for a walk. That's all I did
Just
today.
played
And my
airplane.
strain is 14. I think I like, and the worst part is then we were getting dinner ready, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna have like a roast dinner or whatever." And she's like, "Oh, lovely." And then she was gone, and I was like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "Dada, come airplane." And I was like, "Oh fuck, no, I can't,
What have I
I can't
done?
do it again." Yeah, so I need to figure out a way where she wakes up in the morning and there's no evidence of the game that we play. Like I need to burn her table and
Yeah.
chairs or something, so there's no evidence of the
So
game.
she forgets about
Yeah,
this and that it
like
ever happened.
yeah, but imagine how excited she's gonna be when she actually goes in a fucking airplane. Like she's not gonna know what is going on.
She's
Um,
gonna lose it.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very enjoyable. We've gone through the day the we've because she keeps saying like, "Oh, go on holidays," and we were like, "No, we're not going on holidays today. You're going to the swimming pool today, or whatever." So we've had to like show her how many flicks of the calendar. So it's like when it gets to this page, this is the page you can start asking about
Yeah.
holidays, which is like 5 pages away. So just shut up about it for a minute, because today's like a random Wednesday where we all have work. So like, let's just forget about it. So yeah, no, I don't think she understands. Um, you said something there that I was gonna go back to. Oh yeah, when you were here at Wolfhound and you did the kind of seminar thing, we went out for dinner and drinks afterwards, and that's kind of what spawned this podcast happening as well, I suppose. Um, but one of the things that I asked you when we were chatting was, uh, you mentioned something about wanting to have kids at some point.
Mhm.
Like it was just kind of a throwaway comment in the middle of the conversation, and then I was like, "What would you do if you had kids?" And then you said like, "Oh, I'd probably go team." Because the strain it would put, like the time and all that kind of stuff, it would probably be too difficult. So then when I found out that you guys are pregnant, I was like, oh, well, does that mean that he's finished then, or what's going to happen
What?
there? So what happened? Like, did you kind of play it by ear and see what would happen and it just kind of worked out? Or like, was there ever a time where you were like, maybe I need to shelve it, or was there any back and forth over it?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seriously considered going team yet. Partially because obviously, like, partly because I live in a place where going team would mean moving away, and that's not an option that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, that even being said, even if I did have a good opportunity to go team, I don't know if I would take it right now. And yeah, a lot of it comes down to like I think I was I don't want to say pleasantly surprised, but like there have been times where it's been really difficult. Obviously, COVID layered on top of everything has just not helped anything at all. But, I've got a pretty good routine right now as far as being able to get my training in the short work day that I basically have because again I drop our son off at daycare at 8 o'clock. I get down to the gym around 8:30 and I have to leave the house by 3 o'clock to go grab him. And I'm still involved in our affiliate. I run an online programming business, coaching, all that stuff, and obviously training. So it's like I'm at a point right now where I'm happy with the balance that I have in life, but that's only because of the team that we have at our gym. Like that wouldn't be possible if there weren't people who were there and really like had really stepped into some much more serious, much bigger roles. Because I'm not coaching much at all at our affiliate right now, partially because of our daycare schedule, but also because and I've had this conversation with like a few people at our gym. I'm trying to get it out there a little bit more as well that you know, there's a lifespan on my competition. Like, I'm going to be 32 next month. Like, I've been competing in CrossFit for almost a decade now. And granted, like, my body feels great and I'm still like loving training. Feel like I'm still making progress. I'm still getting fitter. Like, there's no reason that I can't keep doing this. But am also, somewhat realistic to the fact that like time is undefeated. Like, nobody beats time other than like Sam Briggs. She seems to be the only one. So I'm really happy with where I am, but I know that it's not gonna last forever because there's also a part of me that like I want to be more involved in our gym again. And right now I'm relying on some people that I consider really good friends and really trust to really kind of like help steer the ship, and do a lot of man hours or woman hours in the gym. That I just frankly like right now don't really like have because I get to the gym around 8:30. In the off season, I'm training about 2.5 hours a day, 2.5 to 3 hours. I mean, I'm training until 11:30. I'll have lunch. I'll chat with some folks. And then, I mean, basically by the time I get home, it's about 1 o'clock and I've got less than 2 hours to do everything else that needs to happen in my life. Like, answer all the emails for the gym, write programming for clients, for the gym, for, like everything else administratively that has to go into like keeping all keeping things running from the back end. And that's basically the workday now. Because then I have to leave at 3, grab our son, and I'm with him for the afternoons until my wife gets home from work. Um, and again, it's working for right now, but I don't want to do that forever because I want to be at our gym more, especially as Wes gets older. Like, I want to be in the gym with him more. I want, I want him to be in that environment as much as possible because I just love the positivity, the community. Like, it's a place where I want him to, kind of grow up in. So, I mean, yeah, I guess kind of long-winded answer that it's just I right now I'm making it work. But I'm also making it work fully understanding that you know I don't want to say my time is running short, but maybe I
Yeah.
just there's gonna come a point where I think just
Have you a number in your head, or do you think it'll just become
it'll
apparent?
become apparent 100%. Yeah, I mean there's
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I didn't say that there was a piece of me that was approaching, and I've told my coach this, and I've told Caitlin this as well. Like, I'm approaching this as my last year, not because I intend to retire by any means, but I want to go all in one more time. Like this is like I want to make sure that I'm checking all the boxes, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. Like I am 100% invested in absolutely maximizing my performance one more year, and then we'll see what happens. Like because I think there's times where I start to look beyond competing a little bit, and I just I kind of get excited. To like what some, might kind of be coming next down the pipeline as far as some things, opportunities, more balance back in my life, stuff like that. But I don't want those little moments to kind of creep in right now because I want to stay fully and 100% invested. Just because I still love it and I don't want to look back with any regrets whatsoever if semifinals rolls around, games rolls around. Like I just want to know that this year is still 100% of me. Like it's I've put in every ounce of work that I can, and whatever result I get, I deserve. And I just want to make sure that that's
Yeah.
like, that happens, and that I do that, kind of with that in mind, and going absolutely 100% all in with that thought in mind is a little bit easier because again, it's like I'm just going to give this year absolutely everything that I have, and then I'll figure it out. Like there's no sight line past 2022 games and making this year is hopefully the best one ever. Go back, get to the games, and get that goddamn monkey off my back that I've had the last couple of years.
How did you find the games last year?
Last year, 2021. Yes. Had to, COVID has messed up time perceptions. Last year you know, I was proud and happy in a lot of ways. Because, again, kind of going back to like things that I controlled, I was pretty happy with the way that I controlled everything. I think given all the circumstances that I was kind of going through, like I did the absolute best that I could. But also, sometimes like sports are hard and like it's really frustrating to like getting sick, like I got sick and I was puking, I was having both ends, like the 2 days before the competition and the first day of the games. And it's just like, that stuff's just frustrating. Like as much as you're like in the moment, got to stay focused. Like you just got to give it the absolute best effort that you can, like hydrate, like do whatever you can to try and make the best of the situation and get through it. And again, I felt like I did that and I was proud of the way that I did it. But like, just looking back at it, you're like, come on, like, damn it. Like, why then? Why, like it's just hard. It's a tough pill to swallow because again, it's like, if I look at the externals, like I look at my finish, I look at how I did on the weekend, and it's like I was better than that. Like I was fitter than that. I was better than that. I was mentally stronger than that. But like I did everything I could. Like in that moment, that was the best that I had, and it's a tough pill to swallow that that was the best that I had because, again, in more ideal circumstances that I couldn't affect, things could have been a lot better. So like
Yeah.
last year's games were, just a tough pill to swallow. I think is the best way to kind of put them. Again, super proud of a lot of things, proud of my mentality, proud of my effort and things like that. But just kind of just want to catch a break, man. Like just like again, just going in healthy, like showing up to day one, not eaten in 24 hours. Like that would have been a nice, that would have been a great thing to be able to do, to have some food. But yeah.
Why? Where did that come from? Where did the sickness come from? Were you at the lake?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of everyone's like, those lakes are nasty, man. Like, and I mean like they're I live in the Finger Lakes region of New York, and like we get whatever they call it, algae blooms like in the summer all the time. Like there are times where the water is just nasty, and like you don't swim in it, and like Madison stuff because there's all the lakes are really shallow. Like it's really easy for those blooms to occur. So like even if like I don't know that's where I got it, but especially looking at last year where we know for a fact some other people were sick as well. Like it's kind of weird that like there was 4 or 5 or 6 people that all had like a nasty stomach bug and they were like they all had kind of the same symptoms. It's like, all right, well, I don't think it was the athlete dinner because it would have wiped everybody out. But so that's I would assume that it was I suck at swimming, so I probably drank too much lake water. Like that definitely probably didn't help. So note to self: don't drink the water in the lake.
You're supposed to hydrate. You're supposed to stay hydrated. So yeah, it's a fine
Yeah,
line, I guess.
exactly.
Um, when you saw those the articles and stuff in Morning Chalk Cup and the like the kind of reports and stuff that were coming out, were you like, did you fall on one side or the other? Were you like, oh, it's about fucking time someone's talking about it? Or were you like, this is just a waste of everyone's time? Or like how did you feel it? Or did you just care at
No,
all?
I mean, I just didn't really care at all. I just don't think it was a like. Again, I don't think CrossFit would ever do anything that would willingly put us in harm's way. Like I just
Yeah.
if the lake was shitty and we swam in it and the water sucked, like yeah, I mean that kind of sucks. But I don't think there would ever be anything kind of malicious about it. Like like I said, I live in an area where that happens. Like it's a reality of life. Like sometimes like the water quality can literally change day to day. Like, in like here we live on Cayuga Lake, and it's like sometimes you wake up one day, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to the park today. We're gonna swim. It's gonna be great. And you look at the report, and it's like, oh no, it's closed. There's an algae bloom, and like 2 days later, it's open again. So it's like it's just a reality of living in areas with lakes that have lots of runoff from farms that have shallow areas where water can
Yum
yeah,
yum.
stuff like that. So it's just reality. So it didn't really bother me because again it sucked, but it happens.
Yeah. I'm trying to follow the what would you call it? Like the timeline of games to now. So I'm trying to remember what happened when. Um, so Castro was fired before Wadapalooza, wasn't he? Yeah.
Just before.
So
Yeah.
when I think so, yeah. Um, so when he was fired, were you like, what were your thoughts on that? Because I know like some people, there's a few things, right? So I got some messages off people at the time. I was like, this is fucking weird. Like when he was fired, I was like, the word fired, I was just like, that's
Yeah.
weird. Like, it's just odd. But I got messages off people saying like, oh, it's weird that the athletes aren't like that. Loads of the athletes aren't saying anything, or it's weird that they're not. And I was kind of like, yeah, but I mean, like, why should they? Like, it's kind of like you don't have like, I don't know if 'cause, okay, a lot of times you might see if a football manager is fired for like shitty results, there might be one or two players in the team be like, "Thanks for everything, coach."
Yeah.
But then the next week they're going to be like, "You're the best coach" to the new coach. It's like the king is dead, long live
Yeah.
the king. But I suppose it's kind of like it kind of rings hollow then. But I suppose maybe I suppose because people were pissed off, maybe they were looking for athletes. They were looking for another round of like I'm out, like posts or something. They were looking for something like
Yeah.
that. Um, were you like surprised that he was fired, or did you like maybe okay? Were you surprised that we'll ignore the firing for a minute, but were you surprised that he was not going to be in charge of the programming anymore?
100%. I mean,
Yeah,
I was shocked when he was fired. Like, I mean, I didn't see that coming in a million years. I mean, I think, I don't know. I guess my thoughts on the whole situation, just like as a whole, I mean, I don't, I understand from a business standpoint, I get it. Like, I understand why, when you're looking to potentially, rebrand an organization, give it a fresh face, things like that, like why somebody who is more controversial, you know, a leader might make that decision. And like they obviously did. And like, if that's what the leader thinks is best, we can disagree with it, but like I understand why someone might do that. I don't really agree with it. I think not that necessarily because just because you've done something for someone in the past doesn't mean that you deserve you don't get tenure. Like just because he created, I
yeah,
mean, just because he was so influential from a programming standpoint, from creating the seminar team, like the content for the courses, like he's done so many things. Like, granted, that doesn't again guarantee that he should be around forever, but I mean, yeah, I expect him to be around for a long time because again, like he's really good at what he does. Like, I mean, the training team is phenomenal. Like all the red shirts, they're wonderful. It's some of the best coaches in the world. Like, and he's been a huge part of that. And like, again, from a programming perspective, can someone else do it? Yeah, but like he did it really well, man. He did a lot of things really well over the years. Yeah, he had some missteps. Like he had some open workouts where I was like, I do not want my affiliate to do that. That looks like pain. But like that's just again difference in opinion. Like I still understood the test or whatever it was. Like you can like a workout, not like it, agree with it, disagree with it, whether it's from a competitive standpoint, for your affiliate, for your average everyday athlete, whatever. But yeah, I was shocked for sure. And again, I was expecting Dave to be around for a very long time, and
Yeah.
I think why athletes weren't necessarily kind of pouring out of the woodworks. Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe CrossFit athletes are kind of in a weird spot sometime because, like, I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff going on right now with like the PFAA, with like Fikowski and Vellner are kind of like some of the big names kind of heading that up, to try and like get athletes a bigger voice and to try and get us more involved with the organization in certain ways and things like that. So I think that in the future there might be a little bit more, I guess, kind of connection to CrossFit, whereas like right now, we're CrossFit athletes, but I think everyone is maybe still also a little bit like, I don't know, a little bit kind of not scared of the old ways of CrossFit, where like speaking out against CrossFit wasn't necessarily something that you would always do and do kind of willingly, because you might get smushed. But yeah, maybe a little bit of that.
What did you think would have happened if you spoke out though?
Oh no, I mean, I don't think anything bad would have happened at all. Like I don't think there would have been any like sanctions or anything. Like I'm not saying something would have happened. But there was definitely, and like a lot of athletes have spoken about this at various points, relatively openly. Just that not necessarily in the recent days, but in some of the older days of CrossFit, like speaking out against CrossFit didn't usually go well. Like not that anything bad would happen, but just like it wasn't positively received, and it could
Yeah.
could yield to some things happening. Whether it's just grapevine things or whatever. Like I said, I've never experienced anything like that personally, but like talking to some friends that have been around for a long time, like there was definitely a vibe of it where it's like, yeah, we just kind of stay quiet sometimes.
It's like the original shadow ban.
Yeah,
It's like you were just kind of quietly ignored for a while. It's
ex-
like that's the guy who said that we were
yeah,
shit.
exactly. But yeah,
Yeah. Have you gone to because I know they do those PFA meetings like kind of semi regularly. Have you gone to any of
yeah.
those?
I've dialed in on as many as I could. I've definitely been to a handful, at least probably 3 or 4 of them.
And do you find them like productive and proactive and like are
Yeah,
they
100%. I
building
mean,
you?
it's really good to see. It's something that the athletes have been kind of we've needed, just from a broad perspective, because like athletes have wanted to be more professionalized, better represented. Like we've wanted to see the sport grow, for a while now, like especially the last couple of years, as the games, like especially when the games were exploding. Like you look at like CrossFit at like 2016, 17, 18, like leading up to the dark times, like when the sport was just exploding off the map. It's like, cool, like this could become a really big thing, and like like this could be like a very professional pursuit for us. And I think it's really good to get a bunch of like-minded people in the same room. And Brent's a really smart guy. He's put together a lot of really good ideas from a lot of people, that everyone largely really agrees with. So there's some really exciting things that at least the athletes now have a unified voice to push for. And I think that's a really big important piece moving forward, is just that there is a collective that's saying like, hey, we all agree that we want this, and this is something that we would like to see happen. And like obviously, it has to be a two-way street. And like I think I don't want to speak for all the athletes, but like we're prepared for that, to like have it be like, yeah, like you give some, you take some. Like it's going to be a reciprocal situation where everybody benefits. Like that's the goal at the end of the day. Like you want the athletes to succeed more, and we want CrossFit to succeed more. Like we want everybody to win. Like we don't want to win at the expense of CrossFit. So I think everyone's pretty realistic about that. But there's definitely a lot of really good things that I think could boost the professionalization of being an athlete, to something where like you could hopefully in the next couple of years be a full-time CrossFit athlete, and like make a living from competing, not necessarily from having to
Yeah.
fill to kind of fully form your own way as far as getting sponsors and things like that, where, it's like you can't live on prize money alone unless you're winning the games or coming in like top three. Like that's just not a realistic situation for right now.
Um, when you mentioned sponsors there, I was always curious. Like, if you have a brand, um, I'll give you two hypotheticals, right? So you have a brand. Um, okay, so we'll say like I come in, I win the lotto, I come into some money, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to sponsor some athletes. I'm going to have like official podcast athletes because I don't know. That's the easiest example to pick without picking an actual brand that exists. So I come to you and I say, "Hey Tim, I want you to be the an official athlete of the podcast, and I'm going to give you like I don't know, just an arbitrary amount of money every month or something." And you're like, "Okay, cool. I just want you to post some stuff, or like just mention that the show exists or whatever. That's all I need from you." And you're like, "Yeah, cool." And then that's so situation A is I go to you and I offer you an arbitrary amount of money. We'll just say like $1,000 a month, right? And you're like, okay, perfect. That's situation A. Situation B, right? An alternate hypothetical. I go to you and 25 other athletes and I say individually, like, I want you to be an official athlete of the show and I'm going to give you um, $800 a month. Right? And you're like, okay. And then I'm like, we're going to launch it next week. Everyone's going to know about it. It's going to be amazing. And you're like, cool. And then I post it, and you're like, oh, here we go. I've been tagged in a post. This is obviously the launch that, this big team discussed at the fucking meeting or whatever. And you're like, oh, there it is. And then you click on, and it's like you and 24 other athletes at the same time. Versus in situation A, it's just you. Are you happier? Like, does it affect the athlete when you're like, oh, I'm a sponsored athlete by this thing, and it's like, and there's fucking heaps of us, versus like, I'm a sponsored athlete, and it's like a select group, and like we've been like, like I'm always just curious when I see a brand. I'm like, for the brand, is it better to have like loads of exposure, like every athlete is part of this crew? Like, wow, that company must be amazing, or do you get kind of like lost in the noise when you do that? And then on the flip side, for an athlete, is it better to be part of a brand who has an enormous crew of athletes, or as an athlete, are you going to get lost in the noise of that, or like, do you give a shit?
I mean, it's not something. I mean, I'll say it's not something I've ever thought about specific, like it kind of specifically or intentionally. But like I'll give an example, like 10,000. I worked with them for the last year. They decided to move out of the CrossFit space, which was kind of a bummer. At least pursuing it actively. Like, but what I thought they
Yeah.
did great was like they selected a crew of like they handpicked like 5 or 6 athletes, and they're like, all right, you're our core CrossFit team, and it was really cool because again, it was like there was a small group of us. We did training camps together. We were constantly in communication with one another. Like there was mutual feedback to help develop products, like things like that. Like, and that was really cool because it also gives you a little bit of like just kind of some camaraderie in the space with the company, and like I really enjoyed that. And I think, I mean, I guess I would say on the whole, I mean, yeah, I don't really have a firm opinion on it either way, but I do think there's something to be said for you know more athletes being on something, but like or being involved with a company, but it really kind of depends on what, because like that can be a
Yeah.
really blurry line because like there are ambassadors and then there are sponsored athletes. Like there's someone with a
Yeah.
discount
Yeah.
code and then there's someone who's a sponsored athlete who like this company is they're taking care of like I think there's a really kind of blurry line, and like some companies have lots of ambassadors, and I don't think that necessarily it's not the kind of core community or core group that you would I think are kind of referring to. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying I like that. I like the model of like, like, yeah, like, you look at a company and there's, they have like 10 to 20 CrossFit athletes, and it's like they're sponsoring them. It's a, core group. You get together, there's, whatever an annual event or something like that. Like I like that vibe personally. I just think that would be, because again, a lot of it's about, kind of, community engagement, branding, like, market, like, not marketing yourself, but like, just kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Networking. That's the word, not marketing. Networking. It's like that's a lot of what it is, like that's a lot of what becoming successful means in a lot of industries, like not just fitness industry, like, networking with like-minded people and kind of growing that way and growing your network with people that are, that are like-minded, that are driven, that are interested in the same things you are, like, that kind of, I think that's really important and really crucial. For me, like especially looking at like selecting sponsors, like something like that, I would weight pretty highly.
Yeah. I realized halfway through my hypothetical that I didn't need to use a hypothetical at all. I could have just asked the second part of the question. Like, halfway through, I was just like, I've started it, so I'm just going to finish it, but it's basically irrelevant at this stage. And I was picking numbers out of my head, just being like, it doesn't even fucking matter what number you say. You could just cut this whole section out and just carry on, and nobody would even notice. Um, yeah, so I appreciate your patience on that. What was the next thing I was going to ask you about? Oh yeah, Wadapalooza. Is there a CrossFit dads like WhatsApp group with like you, Vellner, Travis Mayer? Like, were you guys all like standing? I know Travis was doing team, but like, were you guys like standing around like waiting for say the last event, just being like, well, what's your kid up to now? Like, like, or like you and Pat like talking about like, oh yeah, man, it's hard, and then Travis be like, you have no fucking idea what hard
Travis
is.
definitely has the trump card on being a dad in CrossFit for sure. That guy, yeah, that's a lot of kids. Although Paul Tremblay's up there too. He's got at least like seven now. He might be four.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, there's there's not a WhatsApp group, although that would be a great idea. But I mean, there's definitely some
yeah,
cool. I mean, there's some cool camaraderie there. Just as far as like athletes that I started competing in CrossFit when I was 22, 23. Like kids weren't even on my radar. So it's just kind of cool to see like other athletes in the same stage of life, because I think a lot of times, I mean, you're not sure how you're gonna like. I mean, I'll speak for me personally. Like, I wasn't sure how I was gonna do this after I had a kid, and I think that's part of like going back to our what we were talking about a little while ago. Like, do you go team? Do like just because you're unsure, like
yeah.
it takes so much out of you, like mentally, physically, emotionally, from a time perspective, all that. Like, it just takes so much. So it's like, it's cool to see other people in the same stage of their lives still being, competitive and relevant in the sport. And there's definitely a certain amount of camaraderie there where it's just like, hey, I know we're going through the same shit. Like we're both like, putting in the hours, you're training hard, you're doing all these things, but like, there's these other priorities that you have now too. Like it's not all about training now. Like there's a lot of other things that go into it. And I think it just, there's definitely a level of mutual respect there, just as far as like knowing that it's harder now. It's not as easy as it once was.
It's kind of like when you see someone wearing like nanos or something at the airport, you give
Well,
them a
yeah, a
little
little head
nod.
nod.
It's
Like,
like when you see someone with like a bit of puke on their shoulder, you're like, yeah,
oh yeah, you're like,
same.
I get it. Nice. Thumbs up.
Yeah. Did you enjoy? I know you mentioned there that it kind of wasn't the same because your family wasn't there, but did you enjoy
I did.
Wadapalooza?
I mean, I've been at Wadapalooza like way too many times, seven or eight. Like I've been there almost every year. I've done team, I've done individual, and it's always an awesome event. It's a lot of fun. The vibe is great. The environment's awesome. The team runs a really good event, and it's gotten better over the years. At least from an elite athlete standpoint. I can't speak to what competing in the other divisions is like, but I've always loved it, and I've loved the experience. This year, I think this year was tough. Like the last day was brutal. The weather delays, like we didn't do the first event on the final day until like 7 o'clock at night or so. It was like something absurd, and I was like, I'm not gonna lie, there was a little piece of me that was just like, I'm tired. Like, I'm a guy that I'm awake by 5:30 every day. Like, I'm in bed by 8 o'clock most nights. So, like, there was definitely, I think this was the first year, and maybe this is a little bit of dad coming out, where it's just like, these damn kids staying up late, and why aren't there any events at 7 in the morning when I've had my coffee and I'm ready to go?
You're watching like James Sprague like run around with a smile on his face, and you're like, "Fucking where's the rest?"
For sure. But yeah, so I think that was definitely like, I had that thought a few times this year, and I think it was also a little bit tougher because the events are always like middle of the day and then at night. It's quintessential Wadapalooza. You're always under the lights. I think this year was just a little tougher because again, just the family not being there, like Caitlin, Wes, like so the days were really long leading up to the events, and it's like you're anxious because you're competing, but you're not really sure what to do with your hands. So it was like, it was kind of a weird. it was different this year. That was all. It was the first year that really kind of took me, because like years past, Kate's always been there, or I've done team the last year or two. So it's like you've got people around, like, so being in those kind of weird time slots for me, again, for a person who's awake early in the morning, and you know, never really affected me as much. But yeah, this year, that piece of it, I was like, huh, this is late. So yeah, I joked with Caitlin when I got home. I was like, I wonder if there's an event for morning people. Like, like everyone gets their coffee and the first event's at 8:30, and and then the last event's done before 3, and everybody goes home and takes a nap, and it's all good. I was like, I don't think so. I don't think we'll ever do that.
Yeah.
That's not how sports work. But
Yeah, I don't know. Like Brandon Swan has started his dad hours programming, so like if he ever does a dad hours competition, I mean that's the
yeah,
logical step is to have it finished
and
by
I'll say the
noon.
first event is at 5:30 in the morning. That's my kind of
Yeah, yeah.
that's my cup of tea.
You need 2 events done before the kids wake up, and then it needs to be over before nap time, so that you can sort that out as well. Did you use Wadapalooza? Was it like purely fun? Was it anyway a litmus test? Was it just like like an opportunity to be of value to the community and your sponsors and everything else, or was it like, okay, let's see where
A
I'm
little bit
at?
of everything for sure. The one thing I think we did this year more so than other years is like, again, especially kind of with that mindset of like this year, like we are all in on semifinals and games. Like there's like we weren't preparing for Wadapalooza. Like I was coming hot off of a fresh strength cycle with conditioning as kind of like a secondary focus right into Wadapalooza. So like on the bright side, the litmus test of like, do I feel strong? 100% yes. So like that was definitely like I excelled in events that I would like to have excelled in based off of where were in our training, and there were definitely some events where I think I struggled a little bit more than I would have liked, if I were in more classical peak shape for competition. But so we use it as a litmus test with those things in mind. Knowing that like, hey, like we're gonna hit this, and then we're going right back into like we were coming off of strength training, and we're gonna go right back into it because again, this year we're training through the open. Like the open doesn't really matter at all this year. I mean, essentially getting into quarterfinals is pretty pretty easy for your top level athletes. So kind of with that mindset, like it was kind of like, all right, we're going to test exactly where we are right now, and then we're just going to get right back to training. Like that's the mindset. So I took a day or two off, and then we were right back to it. But yeah,
Did you have to adjust at all with say that aspect of the open that you've spent? What did you say there? This is your
it's my
tenth
11th
year
open.
as a competitive athlete. Okay, and 9 of those opens were do fucking good in the open and like fucking repeat,
Oh yeah,
three-peat, quadruple peat or whatever. Like do real fucking good because especially like was it 18 or maybe it's just 19 where it was like come high enough up in the open, you don't need to fucking worry about anything else. You're in, like you're at
yeah.
the games. So like last year and this year, did you have to adjust? Like did you have to hold yourself back any, like to be like that's not who you are anymore, like it's not about February,
Yeah,
like
I mean,
okay.
there's definitely like I've had this, man. I've talked to a few people, my Caitlin, some of my really good friends, like kind of this ego versus perspective conversation, because like the open, I've historically done very well in the open. Like I was literally just I looked at it the other day. Like I've been top 55 in the open every year since like 2015. Like I've always done very well in the open. I've finished top 10 in the open. Like I've had years in a row inside the top 20. Like but I now have to kind of like, so this year I'm like, I'm going to be like 250th in the open, maybe in the world. It's like, does that mean I suck? Like, especially compared to years past where like, the open has been a good litmus test to beginning of the season. Like how fit are you? But so there's definitely been a lot of rewiring because again, ego perspective, like big picture, like the only reason for me to overemphasize the open right now is for my ego. It's because it's a leaderboard and I want to do well anytime I'm putting myself out there, and I want to do my absolute best given the circumstances. And again, the circumstances of the open allow you to repeat workouts. So, it's just natural, especially after being traumatized for the last 11 years where you just always repeat the workout to do better, that, it's like, especially when there were game spots on the line, or I mean, even back before you could go directly to the games, like it directly affected your regional seating. So like, like you wanted to be in the top heat, like the open mattered so much for so many years that it's been a complete change of perspective to be like, the open literally, like unless you're like someone who can win the Open in your sleep. Like the Open doesn't really matter right now. But all that being said, so like I've had this battle many times, but it's been so much fun this year because like I did 2 of the 3 weeks at Friday Night Lights at my gym, like with the community, was able to like really enjoy it with everybody. And like I actually enjoyed the Open and had fun with it for the first time ever. Like the Open has always been so stressful and like there's always been so much on the line that I've never been able to really enjoy it, which is like kind of what the Open's about for most people. It's about community, it's about celebrating fitness, your gym, all these things. And I never experienced that personally. Obviously, I experienced it for the gym. Like I was always fired up for our athletes, like being there at Friday Night Lights, coaching them, all these things. But like I was never personally as an athlete a part of it. And like that was a really cool thing this year to finally kind of really get to embrace and do, because again, it's the top 10% and then the scores get reset fresh, and that's fantastic. So yeah, there's been a lot of reframe.
When you see the leaderboard though, and you see like, I don't know, like Phil Toon or someone putting up a score, are you like, what the fuck? Are
Oh,
you like, okay, I hope he's done this like
100%.
6 times? Like, do you try and reframe it in your head, or are you just like, don't give a
Yeah, I
shit?
mean, there's definitely a little piece of it. Like I know a lot of these guys are doing one and dones. Like a lot of these guys at the top, they're not retesting. They're doing it once and they're putting up a phenomenal score. And like, yeah, there's moments where I'm like, oh God, am I not fit enough? But I also have to. It comes back to like for me, like that bigger picture perspective of like we're not at peak conditioning, and like the Open is purely about conditioning, and it's like we're still focusing on strength work, we're still trying to build my clean, build my front squat, and even through quarterfinals that's kind of true. Like we're focusing on conditioning more now, but like we're still not peak conditioning. Like we're nowhere near where I'm going to be for semifinals, because again we're still in a phase of training where in the bigger picture getting stronger right now is priority number one. So it's like, it's not like I'm not trying hard in the Open workout. It's like I'm sending it, I'm giving it my best effort. But it's also like, most Fridays I did a full training session in the morning. Like I trained for like 90 minutes to 2 hours, went home, did some work, came back at night, did the workout with the gym. So it's like I'm not doing them in ideal circumstances. I'm not necessarily peaking or prioritizing the workout like we have in years past. But again, that's not making it. I hope that doesn't sound like an excuse to anybody. It's just like that's the reality of that I've had to tell my.
I think it's a reality for
Yeah,
most people, like, as well. I think where I suppose the only question comes down is like, what if the guys at the top aren't peaking either?
exactly. I mean, and that's like, and that's part of it. Yeah, it's a little scary. Like you look at Medeiros, it's like Justin's probably still trying to get stronger too. It's like, damn, like
Yeah,
but again, it's one of those unknown things that you just can't worry about. It's like who knows?
yeah, yeah. It's not going to do any
No.
good, really. Um, do you care what semi-final you go to, or has there been any talk at those PFA things about how that will be worked out, or is there anything
No,
that you know
nothing that
of?
we know of right now. I don't really care which one I go to. They're all pretty solid events. There's the MAC, which I've never done, but I've heard wonderful things about. The other,
Man, you get a sword. I mean,
I would
fucking hell, if there's ever an
love to win
event
a
to win.
sword. That would be fantastic. And the other event they run the Syndicate Crown, and then there's Granite Games, which I did last year and was phenomenal, and then there's Atlas Games, which I don't know much about, but it's also only 4 hours from my house, so I wouldn't be opposed to that one by any stretch of the imagination. But yes,
Yeah.
I mean,
Probably best to avoid Canadians though, if because the Canadian field is pretty deep. Although they might
yeah,
spread
they
them
might
out a
actually
bit
let them
as
come to
well.
America this year. That
Who
that'd be
knows?
nice.
Maybe.
But yes, I mean, I don't really care which one I go to. And the seeding process, all we've been told is that it's going to be largely based on performance in quarterfinals. So if you do better in quarterfinals, you're going to get or sorry, based on your quarterfinals ranking, you're going to be, for the most part, power ranked. So based on like 1 through 4 are largely going to go to 4 different semifinals. 5 through 8 are largely going to
Okay.
go. They're going to make certain exceptions for if a semifinal is super close to you or something like that, or like travel restrictions. But that's largely what we've been told will be the determining factor, and I prefer it that way. I'm not. Again, I don't really care which one I compete at. I would be much more concerned, quote unquote, just that the field at each semifinal is even, like evenly stacked as far as
Yeah,
how
yeah.
you did this year in competition. Like,
Yeah, you don't want like 10. I suppose you don't want like 10 games alum people in one event, in one semi final, and one in
yeah,
another either. But like you also want it to be, yeah, like fairly based off the 2022.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, I mean, yeah, one event might end up with 15 games athletes in it, but it's like if you didn't do well in the quarterfinals this year, then that's fine. Like if that's just how the cards
Yeah,
fall, then that's totally fine, and I hope they let that happen because again, I mean, CrossFit's like any other sport. Like you're only as good as your last performance. So it's like if you do quarterfinals, you should be seeded based off of how you did in quarterfinals. And I hope they stick largely to
yeah,
that because if there are too many adjustments where it's like, you end up with a field that had a few changes and they end up a little, over top heavy or whatever, like, that would be frustrating. Just because, again, I think it should just be one of the things I love about CrossFit is that it's just results based. It's effort, result,
yeah,
that's it. Like, there's no
yeah.
between.
You train like largely alone, as in like a lot of your work you do on your own, or you do, like I've noticed. I'm just listening to my voice getting so bad, like it's really going. Um, so I've noticed that, like, say, I know Roman is in Florida now, and there's like that brute strength crew is like there's an incredible group of athletes down there, male
Mhm.
and female. Then you got like Proven, um, and like Saxon has moved to Tennessee, and you got Tia and Brooke, like again an incredible group there, and you've got Training Think Tank, and you got all these groups, or these like training hubs growing. Do you ever feel a bit like, I don't even want to come up to Ithaca and chill out for a while? Like, do you ever feel a bit like maybe I could do with that? Or do you think that like the system that you have in place with family and training and everything is so finely tuned that any kind of disruption to it might mess it
Yeah,
up
I
too
mean,
much?
I'd be lying if I said, especially I think the last 2 years or so, like, COVID's changed a lot of stuff. I'd be lying. I think a lot of people, and I'll fully admit, like, I've never dealt with anxiety before. I've had pretty serious bouts of it over the last 2 years. It's like just emotionally stretched thin, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. Just lockdowns, restrictions. Is my business going to fail? Like, 100 different things. Everyone's felt the impacts of that. So I'd say in the last like 2 years, there's been a lot more lonely training days than there's been in the rest of my competitive history. Like there have been days
Yeah,
where training has been harder than it's been ever in the past. And I think a lot of it comes back to just like that, that not feeling as connected to the people around you because you're not allowed to see, you're not allowed to see them. You're locked in your house. You're whatever. Like, it was harder than it's been in years past. So I think, there were definitely times where I was like, man, someone else being here today would be nice. Like I'm alone again. But so again, there were definitely hard times, and on those days, like it was hard. Like it was tough, and putting in my best effort was harder than it has been in the past. But I still think 95% plus of my training days, I have a really good system, and I'm really competitive with myself. Like I don't. Because at the end of the day, it's an individual sport, and like, yeah, sometimes it would be nice if you were racing directly against somebody, but I have a couple really, I have a couple good buddies that are on my program that are crazy fit. They've been to the games. They're trying to get to the games right now. Like we're sharing scores. We're talking all the time. So it's like there's always a little bit of extrinsic motivation for me as well because I don't want to lose to them. Like I'm going to tell them my time, and I sure as hell don't want to be the loser. So it's like, and to me that's because I'm an internally, kind of motivated and driven person, like that's as good as anything. Like I'm going through the workout feeling like someone's nipping at my heels because I know that like, if not for myself, like I don't want to lose. I have to tell my score to my friend later, and I don't want him to be able to beat it. Even if I give him my score, I don't want him to go into the gym knowing my score and be able to beat me. And I think I've used that more so in the last 2 years than I used to in the past. Is just like, hey man, text me your score later. Like I'm done. I want to, like let's compare.
yeah. You want to tell him your score and have him not want to go to the gym. That's what
Exactly.
you
You
want to
want him to be
happen there,
like,
basically.
oh, I don't want to go that fast. Yeah.
Um, you mentioned anxiety there, and I think it's a thing that a lot of affiliate owners will probably have gone through, just business owners in general, I suppose. But do you feel like there's any hangover from that, or do you think that it's like has the open kind of wiped the slate clean a bit? Because obviously it was probably a watershed moment for a lot of. I know in Ireland anyway, it was a
Yeah.
watershed moment of like we had just gotten rid of our mask mandate. We had just gotten, like things were like actually gone back to normal, and it was like I fucking missed the last Friday because classic, I get COVID. Like,
Naturally.
like I fucking dodged it for 2 years. Um, but I know from seeing like videos and stuff, Um, like everyone was there, everyone was standing beside each other. There was no social distancing, there was no mask, there was no. It was actually
Yeah.
just normal. So like I think from my perspective, anyway, from what I've seen, it seems to have been a bit of a like the whiteboard is wiped clean now, and it's kind of like, oh look, stuff's back to normal. It's fine. Like, do you feel any kind of hangover from the emotions that you've had over the last 2 years, or do you think that the open has helped
I
with that?
mean, the open and the way things are kind of just generally turning around was huge. You know, like for us, we hadn't had Friday Night Lights just like anybody else in many, a couple years now. I mean, the first week we had over 70 people do the workout that night, and we had like well over 100 people there hanging out, cheering. Like the gym was packed, beer was flowing, non-alcoholic beer was flowing. Like life was good, and like I think just like that environment and like feeling it again was like really profound for a lot of people, like myself included, a lot of the members of our community. Like it was what people needed, like it's been a pretty rough 2 years in a lot of ways for a lot of people, and like people just needed a win, man. And week two, week three were just as good. Week three was awesome. Had people get their first muscle ups, like do their first muscle up in a workout. They'd only ever done like one in their life before, got their first pull up, and like just like those little victories, and like seeing people fired up and seeing like a room of 100 people fired up for them, like it just felt like a little bit of like, oh shit might be normal again, man. Like we might actually be there, and like that was definitely huge. So I think like on a lot of levels, a lot of it's better for sure for me. But I mean, just to be frank, like businesses, the economy and a lot of businesses are rebounding much slower than I think anybody would have thought or liked. And I'll speak for
Yeah,
myself. Like, our sales are still down significantly enough from pre-COVID. Like, we had our best financial month ever, March of 2020, before things shut down. So, we're kind of chasing that pre-COVID high, but not that we're chasing it, but like we've changed the way we do business in a lot of ways. Like not the core product or the core service that we offer people, but like looking at things a little bit differently. Looking at the business plan differently. Looking at okay, like just monetizing a couple different things. Adding auxiliary services, things like that. Just because again, things aren't rebounding as quickly as anybody would have liked. Like I would like to have thought that by now we'd be close to where our membership numbers were pre-COVID, and we're not. So I mean, there's definitely a bit of stress and anxiety that still lives on top of the normal entrepreneurial stress, because entrepreneurs are just generally stressed all the time. Additional on top of that of just like we're not back where we were. Like, am I doing something wrong? Am I missing opportunities? Am I, did I punt one into the stands at some point? Like, so there's a lot of that going on still. But I think on the whole, it's getting a lot better. It's just definitely still there.
yeah. What we'll assume that you're healthy and feeling good and not shitting yourself and puking the day
I
before
like that.
games. What's a successful 2022 look like?
I mean, honestly,
Is that it? Like, is it just going into the games healthy? Is that
I mean,
enough?
honestly, like, yeah, part of it because like I would just, I think what I would really like to, I guess, a perfect year for me, results aside, like I would like to get to the games and I would like to perform at 100%. Period. Like I feel like I haven't hit 100% performance at the games really since like rookie year, honestly. Like I've had a lot of just like the years I was healthy, I made a lot of mistakes. The years that I felt really good mentally and physically, or mentally, I got sick. Like I feel like I just haven't put all the pieces together. And like again, I'm really
Yeah,
proud of my career so far. Like I'm not again complaining about anything, but like yeah, I guess like in a perfect world, I would just like to put it all together at once. Like, like, and that would, regardless of what the results led from that, like, I would like to just look at it and be like, man, mentally nailed it. Physically, I was there. Like, just kind of like, it would be, I really want to see what I can do when I align my stars. Like when I have that great weekend, what does it look like? So yeah, I mean, I guess that would be, yeah, that would be winning for me this year. And I mean, I think at the end of the day, I would the year's going to be a win regardless because I feel like right now I'm still living out my priorities every day. Like, you know, I'm there fully and 100% mentally and physically for my son, for my wife. Like, you know, like I'm training as hard as I can, but like my family's still coming first. And like, again, that's what happened. Like that's what I told myself was going to happen. I wasn't going to let I wasn't gonna, you know, push them aside in any way, shape, or form to try and better my performance. Like, you know, they were gonna come first, and then I was gonna give everything I had after that to training. And I feel like I've done that so far, and I plan to continue to do that. So that's I guess that's the probably the biggest marker of a win for me.
Spe- Fuck. Speaking of, people are going to think I was crying there. That's just COVID. I was thinking of, speaking of family, I got a really nice message off your dad, like the day before, maybe 2 days before the games last year. And he was like, "Oh, are you in Madison? I want to buy you a beer. Like, you've been really good with Tim, and I really appreciate whatever." And I was like, "Holy fuck, that is so fucking nice." Like, I just thought it was. I was like, "What a fucking nice guy! Like, what a good dude
Yeah,
to be like." To I just didn't want to let the opportunity to mention it pass by without mentioning it, because yeah, I think you come from good stock.
I definitely do.
Well, look, I really appreciate taking the time out. I really appreciate it coming back on. It's been great. It's funny, like thinking back to the first time. So the whole idea for the podcast came from a conversation that I had with you, and afterwards I was like, "Fuck! Like, what other questions could I have asked him, or what other questions could I have asked other people?" Because I think I asked you something about the rope climb event, and you were like, "Oh, no one ever asked me that before," and I was like, "Oh, that seemed like a pretty obvious question, but okay." And like then I was kind of like, "What else could I ask people?" And then you were on episode 10, and I remember sitting in our spare room in a house that we didn't own, with the laptop, that had to stay plugged in all the time, and it was on an upside down laundry basket on the bed, and I was sitting in a garden chair in the bedroom. And now I have like an actual proper office and like a laptop just for the podcast, and like, do you know, like
Things have
it's
grown so
crazy.
much.
Yeah, but I just like, I really, really hope that you get what you want this year. I really hope that you get your chance to perform at your absolute best, and because I really want to see what you're capable of. Because I remember thinking last year when you made it through Granite Games, I was like, that wasn't a fucking easy semi final to come through, and I was like, you know, that was like, there was moments where I was like, fuck, like he actually could be in trouble here, like, because like it's a decent field, like, and it's like people are performing pretty fucking well here. Um, so when you came to that, I was really impressed. I was like just gutted for you in Madison. I was just like, you just can't write that kind of look like that. You know, like that. It was going to be like you I suppose missed the opportunity for redemption in 2020 because
Yeah.
fucking everyone did, and then your next step was like kind of just unfortunately ruled out, I suppose. So yeah, I'm really excited to see a 100% Tim Paulson take on the games in Madison hopefully this year. And I think, yeah, your uh, talk on priorities, I think, will resonate with a lot of people as well. So yeah, best of luck with everything, and you'll come back on in another
Yeah,
180
thanks, man. No, I really
episodes.
appreciate it. Yeah, last year was something special. So yeah, hopefully this year we can get a little bit of full redemption. That'd be nice.
Yeah, and you come back to Ireland
Oh yeah,
soon as
well
well.
actually
So
it's either this fall or next fall. We're in the short term future. It kind of depends on how things shake out, but it's very much on the horizon. Yeah.